Eurobike Day 2, lots of tech to find, let's go! So I'm at the Shimano booth with a brand new S-Phyre shoe. It is the RC903, it's replacing the previous 902 and it's available in this pretty cool colorway. This limited edition, it's got a few other colorways available. The update of this shoe, I mean, it's lighter as you'd expect, it's a little bit stiffer. They say it's got a bit more flex in the toe box area, or more so in the upper, just for comfort. And they've actually given you the option of putting inserts into the insole to help with that arch support and comfort. So despite it being an incredibly stiff shoe, you can also make it incredibly comfortable. It's a top of the line shoe from Shimano and it's a pretty sweet looking shoe. Flying by the Campagnolo stand now, and I spotted the brand new group set from them, which was released just a couple of months ago. It's the Super Record wireless group set. Now, this is quite interesting. It's quite an overhaul for the brand. They have ditched the famous thumb lever that you would traditionally get on the inside there, and we've got a more familiar shifting from the brake lever here, which we get with other brands. Now what's interesting as well with the wireless technology is they've got individual batteries on the front mech and the rear mech, kind of familiar to, sort of similar to SRAM. You can remove those batteries, but they aren't interchangeable. You can get a full charge within 60 minutes on both of those. They've also totally revamped the gear ratio, so now we've got a 10-tooth smallest cog on the cassette at the back. We do believe there is a TT group set coming, but we are yet to see it, so we just have to stay tuned. Well, this bike has been getting a lot of attention here at the Expo. I'm on the Scott stand. This is a Scott foil, but not just any old Scott foil, because it has been built up by Gustav Gullholm, aka Dangerholm, who specializes in building super lightweight and very good looking bikes. So he's got a lot of custom parts on here, some from Sturdy Cycles, who actually are quite close to us in Bath, where the GTN Mega Base is based. But it's this that's caught my attention today. It's the Kogel Colossus Aero rear mech cage, and it's just a beauty. Think of art. Look at it. Here we have Lucy Charles Barkley's bike. Now, she actually rode this one to the Ironman 70.3 World Championships. She also rode it in Kona. We featured it on the channel back then, and well, this is a prototype version, but there is actually a production model coming very soon, which we're also going to feature on GTN. I absolutely love the colorway on this bike as well. Honestly, it seriously pops in the daylight. It almost like kind of illuminates around the edges. But what's interesting about this bike is they actually started the development of it back in 2015. It was released in 2016. They worked on that with the Rayler brothers. And actually, the shape of the bike hasn't changed a ton since then. So it's really testament to that initial design. But what has changed, particularly with the newer bike, or this bike that Lucy has been riding and will be coming out, is the integration and the storage and hydration. So now there is actually a bladder in the frame down here with the straw going up, and that pops out through the bento box, in addition to hydration on the front end, and of course you can get hydration on the back should you want. So it really is kind of a race-ready bike. You don't need to start bolting loads of extras on. Obviously they haven't got the straw coming out of the bento box here, but stay tuned because there's a lot more to come on this bike. Okay, at the Classified stand now, very excited to talk to you about this one. I'm a big fan of Classified, as you probably know. I talk about them far too much on the channel. I think Classified is the future in triathlon. As you can see behind me right now, we have Kyle Smith's bike. He has no front mech, but he still has the same gear ratios or gear options as we would if we did have a front mech. So that front mech is essentially in the rear hub. Now how they do that is with this hub. It's the Powershift hub, which is laced into this wheel here. Now how that works is you would shift through your gears as you ordinarily would, and then when you want to shift between that virtual big or small ring, you'd hit an extra little shifter and it would do that. Now that works with having a through axle that you can charge and powers this, and then on the shifters at the front, that's just powered by a little coin cell battery. But what's really exciting is that up until now, we haven't had a disc wheel, which obviously will be amazing for triathlon and probably of big interest. And here it is from Parcours. We finally have one. Now the reason this has taken probably a little longer than we'd have hoped is because it's not as simple as just lacing it into a wheel. This requires a whole new mold. So hats off to Parcours for doing this. They've completely redesigned the tools to be able to make this wheel, and we have the Powershift hub in there. It was first ridden by Kyle Smith in Ibiza, which, well, he did phenomenally well. He was first off the bike ahead of some big names, and it was released now this week officially. So exciting times for triathlon. Now, this isn't triathlon, it's gravel, but it's gravel going aero. As you may know, people are starting to go more aerodynamic, a bit more serious about gravel riding, and people have started using aero bars. And FSA have just brought out these carbon aero bars, which I've got to say look quite sleek, and maybe you could use them for triathlon too. We've also got new stuff from Vision. We have a new wheel set. This is the deepest wheel set, bar a disc wheel, that Vision have ever made before. It's a progression on the 81. They now have the Metron 91 SL. It's incredibly wide profile. It's 21mm inner width or internal rim width on both the front and the rear. And whilst we're here, and because it's hit below us, they told me that we'll see some updates on their disc wheel in the Tour de France. Some of the riders will be riding a slightly updated version, which they've managed to shave some weight on and get in under 900 grams. Whoa. Right, whilst roaming Eurobike last year, we came across the Merida Time Warp. It was their new and updated TT bike, pure TT bike, and at the time they said there would probably be a triathlon version. They weren't too sure, but hopefully in the near future. Well, it came out at the end of last year, and here it is. It's the first time I've actually seen it in person. Now, with the TT bike, the top tube ran seamlessly into the base bar. With the triathlon version, and as they kind of suggest they probably do at the time, is they brought that base bar up ever so slightly to accommodate for the longer durations that would be on the bike, make it more comfortable, etc. And that allows them to then pop the bento box in and that base bar to run seamlessly into the bento box. Of course, the big update with the Merida Time Warp last year was the integration of disc brakes. So that's the case here as well. But the interesting feature on this bike that I haven't really seen on a TT bike necessarily before is this dampening system in the seat post. So this is called the S-Flex. It's, well, kind of like a cutout and a rubber insert into the seat post, and they say that that just adds a little bit of dampening and improves the comfort, as a lot of the force or vibrations are actually felt through the seat post and into the saddle. Oh, this was released just 2 days ago. It's the Rotor 2-in power SL power meter. I've always been a fan of Rotor, partly due to the accuracy. Previously, accuracy was plus minus 2%. They've got that even better to plus minus 1.5%, which has got to be one of the best, if not the best, in terms of accuracy on the market. But as the name suggests, SL, they've managed to make this even lighter again by a whole 75 grams, and most of that is by reducing the width of the crank arms whilst using aeronautical aluminium. Why not? And they've also amazingly managed to reduce the price too. So now the crank arms, or the power meter part of it, is available for just €999. And then obviously a little bit more with the chainrings on top of that. Talking of which, you can swap the chainrings out on Rotor devices very, very easily. They just slide on and off, which is awesome. They've also got these direct mount chainrings, so just one-piece chainrings, which again just slide on and off super easily. But yeah, exciting. Okay, I'm at the Scope stand now. Now, Scope are a Netherlands wheel manufacturer who sponsor Team DSM Pro Cycling Team. And I spotted these bad boys. This is an 88mm front wheel and a disc rear wheel. It's actually a disc cover on a shallower section wheels. Apparently, they are testing these with the team at the moment, and hopefully they're coming in due course, probably the later part of this year or early next year. AEA on the wheel stands for Algorithm Enhanced Aerodynamics, meaning this isn't just kind of theory or trial and error. They really are tested thoroughly, and they know that they are super aerodynamic. Scope are also the brains behind the Atmos tyre pressure system, which we saw at things like Paris-Roubaix and other tour stages, where the athletes were able to switch their tyre pressure as they rode along, dropping the pressure and increasing the pressure. I would show you it right now, but unfortunately, someone's run off with the bike, which isn't cool. But yeah, basically there's little buttons on the handlebars that allows the rider, as they ride along, to release pressure from the tyres of both front and rear, and also increase. Could this make its way into triathlon? I don't know, maybe for Nice, so you have more grip on descents. Let's see. Okay, it's actually given a bit of a tip-off to come by this stand. This is the Trigon stand, and the reason for that is because they own their own factory, and therefore their overheads are lower, and therefore the costs of the bikes are lower as well. Yet, they still use very high quality products and materials for the production of their bikes. The same materials that some other big brands like Canyon and Pinarello are using for their top-end bikes. For instance, they use the Toyota carbon fibre, which is deemed the best carbon fibre to be using for bikes throughout the build of their bikes. They've actually also wind tunnel tested their bikes. It's still very thorough. So they've got this dimpling effect on the frame, on the front of the forks here. We've got these carbon fibre covers that go around the disc brake calipers, but with a hole in to make sure we get the airflow through for cooling. They also own Black Tech, which is a component brand which is built also in their factory. So they've got this integrated one-piece handlebar going from stem into the handlebar with Di2 shifters built in on the top here, so you can climb and change gear. And with it all actually costing probably a little bit less than some of these other big brands. So this, with Dura Ace Di2, fully spec'd out, would cost around $8,900, which might be a little bit cheaper than some of the other brands out there. Alright, I've just come across these guys, Smart Cyclo. They are a cycle fitting company. They've been in development for the last 3 years. So for this, I put on this kind of heart rate strap, which has a sensor in the middle. That's on the back. And to kickstart, you basically will go through a calibration with the software, and it'll run you through a few different positions. So you'd cycle away, like upright, comfortable position, on the hoods, on the drops, even in the aero bars, a few different positions. And from that, it'll be able to determine what your ideal, optimal positions are and what are not ideal based on kind of pumping it through the algorithm. You'll also be able to customize it a little bit, go in there, figure out what works for you, what doesn't work. But it also then links up with things like heart rate, power, and you'll be able to see how power may drop off, how your heart rate may rise in certain positions, and start to figure out when the position is dropping off for you, what is ideal, what's not ideal. And over time, you'll be able to store and log all this data and analyze it post-workout and start to figure out what you are doing in your sessions, what you are not doing, and how you could potentially improve and further it. The device itself is going to be retailing around €200. The software per month will cost around €6, but initially for the first year, because it is a new product, that will be free of charge. And they are still developing it, so there may be sensors that will come elsewhere, on the helmet, at the bottom of the back. Who knows? We'll see, but it's definitely an exciting product, and yeah, keen to see where it goes. I just come across these guys, Wind Pulse. I know what you're thinking, another CDA sensor, but this is actually slightly different. In fact, it isn't a CDA sensor at all. This is tracking and measuring wind speed and wind direction. Now, the way in which you could use this is by attaching it to your bike or to your helmet, in fact, and forget this tripod, that's irrelevant. This would attach from the bracket underneath, or you can actually attach to your helmet, this nice pink one here, and it would track that wind speed, wind direction, and then you'd use that in relation to your power, your time on a course, and you'd be able to do testing over and over if you're tweaking your position or changing your equipment, clothing, and you'd be able to kind of check the validity of that and whether the conditions have changed at all, or just get back from your ride and just wonder why on earth you had such a tough time and find out you had a stonking headwind all the way. But yeah, this isn't CDA testing, this is more about that wind speed and wind direction. It's something that they decided that, well, CDA is kind of a tough thing to track out on the road, so different products to the market, and quite an interesting one. It's going to be available for €599 initially, and then eventually it's going to be for around €800 in the near future. Day 2 at Eurobike done and dusted. What a day, there's been so much tech out there, and I'm shamelessly going to finish with one of my favourite bike brands. This is Moulton Bikes, partly because they're literally 2 kilometres down the road from my house, but also because I love the design of these bikes. Now, these bikes are, well, they retail for about 12 grand and can reach as much as 20,000 because they're essentially collector's items. Alex Moulton, that started this brand back in the 1960s, came from having developed the mini suspensioning and I guess had a passion for bikes or bikes with small wheels and set up Moulton Cycles. And back in the 1960s, actually was the second largest bike company in the UK behind Rally, and whilst they have resisted disc brakes for some time, they've finally brought out one with disc brakes and even comes equipped with Campagnolo group set. Pretty sweet. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. If you've enjoyed Eurobike, please do give it a thumbs up, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe.